Everybody, it's King here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to another form of technical materials video. But as you see by the title, it is going to be structured around an interesting case of topic of discussion. And as you see by the title and as well make sure the thumbnail, like I said, it is obviously which Lantern Corps would Elden Ring characters be in, or something of that sort. Don't actually know the title by the time it's actually being uploaded, but it's something along those lines. For you guys who don't understand the talk of the Lantern Corps that I'm talking about, it is based around DC's Lantern Corps, which are powered by emotions and different abstract case of things tied to the mental, spiritual, and physical. In this case, the Lantern Corps we're going to be using is going to be the Green Lantern Corps, Will, Purple Lantern Corps, Compassion, Pink Lantern Corps, Love, Red Lantern Corps, Rage, Yellow Lantern Corps, Fear, Orange Lantern Corps, Greed, Blue Lantern Corps, Hope, Ultraviolet / Darker Purple Lantern Corps, which is technically mixed back of the actual canonical mix, Lantern Corps, but I think part of the main DC universe, being Shame or Down Emotions, Black Lantern Corps, Death, and White Lantern Corps, Life. The only reason why it's not black is because of the fact it would be too blackened out and some people couldn't read it. I know it's gray. Shut up. Anyway, with that being said, this is going to be an interesting vid. We're taking in every form of mainline Elden Ring character. This video was already inspired before during point and done, but I wanted to go and redo it because my last version of it, not only I feel like was very much trash, but as well, it is again a video topic that I feel like could be a lot more unique and interesting, with not only a way better tier list format and an actual demonstrated tier list thing, and not just having it be obviously a tier list that I talk over in a video trying to somewhat greater explain it. So with that being said, I hope you guys will enjoy it, and as well, again, if you are new here, please leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, where the case may be. Hit the bell icon down below so you're notified every single time I make a video. I hope you guys will enjoy as always. If you have any different mix, maybe differencing opinions on why not only I put where I put, who I put, and where they are, please let me know your opinion down in the comment section down below, as always. But if you want to have a greater conversation about, debate about anything, as always, my Discord is rpking3124, and I also want to go ahead and say thank you to Dumpy Kong for mixed inspiration with his vid involving the case of the 7 deadly sins, and as well the virtues of Elden Ring. I have a video idea mixed bag plan for talking about sins and virtues of Assassin's Creed characters or something of that sort, so stay tuned for that. But without further ado, without all this case of matter of yap, what is being said, hope you guys enjoy as always. Let's go and get it in. So for the mixed outer gods, it will be a mixed constitution of what they represent and different symbolic emotion. So the Fell god, I would say very much constitutes Red Lantern, and I'm going to go over with each form of person at first stamp what the qualities and or qualifications and what greater means of being in some of these Lantern Corps are. So starting with the first one being Red Lantern. A Red Lantern is obviously empowered by rage, fury, anger, right? But being in the Red Lanterns require a sacrifice of the body, and only the most acidic, hateful, chaotic rage can keep you going, and that very much I feel like would fit dang near any person we're going to talk about in the Red Lantern thing, not only because of people's very much resilient bodies, demigods, gods, outer gods, primordial beings, but to push past that, but being empowered by so much of a cosmic power that taking in a Red Lantern, or at least an energy of a Red Lantern, wouldn't be too surprising. And being a Red Lantern is just very much tied to a righteous fury. Obviously, the Red Lanterns are led by Atrocitus, the most angriest nigga in the fucking universe. But yeah, then the Formless Mother, I would say that everything that I know, you could say could be in the Red Lantern thing, but if I had to say anything about a Formless Mother, it would just seem like a death-bringing individual. Granted, this is just from what I know what is being said, so I'm kind of mixed to really say. But I mainly say it because of the fact that Formless Mother is pretty much a death decaying sense of, being that brings as much chaotic destruction akin to a mix of rot and a sense of frenzied flame, but in a very abstract, weird form. So it's kind of weird to really say. Being a Black Lantern, you would have either have to die a necromancer, a person that's big tied to death, a person that uses sorcery of that sort, or you're a death bringing individual, has a bunch of undead people, the most deadly, demonic, crazy vatos ever seen. So I like to say that would very much fit. Now for Rot is a kind of mixed two-way stretch between being a mix of Yellow Lantern fear, and then same time you could mix perceive with the mix of its banishment / containment to perceive as death. But I think fear is very solid, not only because obviously Outer God, in general, would bring about the essence of it being so astronomically beyond any from a mortal's comprehension that would invoke fear as being, a tentacle god. But, this being raw Outer God, they would essentially stamp fear into any being. So just being in their presence would then constitute the instant bringing of fear. And the raw Outer God is one of the most feared Outer Gods, not only in lore, but multiple times debated in the case of, impossible bringing of devastation, absolute, entire decay of the lands between fundamentally, because not only is Ra a very highly potent, devastating thing, but we've seen the level of impact it has put in Caelid, and it has fully bounded people to basically the most hellish, hateful existence like never seen. I mean, this 30 millennia by blossoming turned Caelid into Florida. So yeah, simple as that. But in the greater will, I think very much with form of existence could very much constitute a White Lantern being life. This would mean a person that's full upstanding of life energy source, godly beings that exist on the plane of a higher, like the tree of like godly essence and tangle. Their existence is a lot more higher calling and hail than any other, and the greater will literally personifies life, order, and death. Is the godly essence technically like tied to like a holy trinity existence? So I think that's very much fair. Lord of Chaos tarnished. Fear, self-explanatory. Chaos incarnate, very much seeming in line with that. You could mix them to be mixed Orange Lantern for the Greed essence, but I feel like it's more lust for power. But the Lord of Chaos, or Crazy Flame as a whole, does invoke fear like never seen before. But then Godhood Ronnie, kind of mixed to mix perceive, because it's a mixed entangle of emotions and possible mixed take for how you could say Ronnie is. So Ronnie, in true being, seeks to reinvent the land between and pretty much turn back the clock and pretty much gain mixed take of like omniscience, right? She at a high plane of now being entirely beyond ordinary comprehension of people, becoming high-standing queen of the lands between and gaining heights and power like never seen before, as Ronnie is now entirely not only built different case of being a woman, but through her not only, turn back the clock, destroying a Queen America, not like a mixed fighting sense, but just gaining a whole different higher astral plane of power and pretty much ascending on some like Athena stuff, will ground her to be a mixed take of being not only White Lantern because of the godly talk, but then when we talk about the whole Blue Lantern hope thing, she does very much have a lot of hope and strife for greater things, and in the world that she's making, there's a lot more possibly maybe provide of hope and rehabilitating the lands between as being a cursed, broken, very much destroyed realm of existence, as the lands between multiple times been seen as a lost cause, a realm shattered, a realm disconfigured, and through her hands she can multiple times rebuild it and hopefully to some higher ground, stuff like that. So that's kind of just where it's at when it comes to someone like Ronnie. I would say it's a mix between Blue Lantern Corps for hope, she's again going to bring hope. She's on the case of like hope in a mixed ride, and Ronnie for a great deal would say very much solidifies hope. But I think you could arguably say that's more Ronnie than her godhood, and there's obviously different emotions and acts that she pulls that can give the essence of maybe mixed greed or power, lustful, non-compassionate, which is where compassion core would still come into play, stuff like that. Elden Beast should be so explanatory right up here. White Lantern literal existence itself. Radagon, controlled by the Golden Order. I would say mixed godly essence and just as a being, and technically being dead. You could say being here or up here. It's just things to think about in this comparison, I guess. It's just simple as that. You could be just a herald of a godly being like never seen before, think beyond the comprehension, conception itself, or just be a dead host husk of power. Midra, I'll claim, should be in the same tier as well in the case of fear stuff. Placidusax, it's kind of interesting to think about. So not only is Placidusax not really like poke anything of greater emotion, Placidusax is seen as obviously a very godly, powerful, dummy, terrifying dream.
Be sure to say bye to the guests.
I know, that's my mother in the background. Anyway, it's a very terrifying case of, dragon, every K ability to instill fear, plunge people to depths of horror like never seen before. Was obviously the Dragon King, King of Far Zula, the king beyond the fog, beyond the tornado and the chasm, distorted of time and or beyond time, right? He was arguably the first Elden Lord. So just using a lot of just base matter of merit, title, and the fact of anything, fear and power is what he solidifies. You could put him in Yellow Lantern, be the baseline mat. But I do think there is a level of like a unique argument to say that he could be up in the White Lantern, mainly because of the godly standard he was at. But just using what it's at face value, because again, Placidusax is literally just a very powerful Hydra, multi-head, King Ghidorah on crack, dragon. I think that would just be self-explanatory for him, right? And like, obviously, Yellow Lantern is for people who you less fear. So everyone understand Astro, and we're just saying what they could possibly use, in the possibility of, not only the basis for their capability to be obviously in these things. Sorry for the mix of the yawn, it's early morning by the time I'm recording this, right? But I basically mean the most, strongly, coherently, articulate is the fact that obviously we're not considering the actual possible interaction with the actual leaders or the greater ideals and so it's in the possibility that you be able to use a ring in question and use one in the case of matter for the capabilities and in the midst of these capabilities aligning with this stuff, because not only do 3 of the people in the tier power by a mix of a fearful case of thing, they personify fear, they literally are living dreads and the most disgustingly horrifying absolute nightmare feel thing. But Placidusax, I would say, commanded a great deal of fear and power and will put the fear of any possible god into any outskirts of person. And Placidusax just personified that. He's a pillar of fear, you could even argue, because Placidusax not only in boss fight is terrifying, but in any possible claim of, in this prime, should be a being that is unquantifiably, built different for anybody. And that you literally had to get, snuck up and caught lacking to be put out of commission. So I think that very much easily counts him as being, in fear regardless of prime or out of prime. Queen Marika is being baseline mixed with being, in goddess stand, an Empyrean trying to ascend to godhood. I would say by every showcasing of Queen Marika's personality, for the good or the bad, it's kind of mixed multiple form of like, Lantern Corpse that she could be in. It's a very mixed thing. I'm not going to leave her in rage, right? But this is the way that it is. So if I had to really say, where she could be, I would say that Queen Marika has, again, multiple from a Lantern Corpse, multiple emotions represented, but the type of emotions that she best reckon, I think, is a great mix of this man, Radagon as well. But the thing is that Radagon has a lot more like clear, simplistic, Lantern Corpse to be in. When we talk about him and his actual like prime, young, mortal side, makes ascended god perspective, America here, in their mixed argument for being mortal to becoming a goddess, right? I think is it kind of all over the place, mixed like perception. So the best way I could like ultimately set in stone this is the fact of the matter is that Queen America, obviously again, as an Imperial, aka a woman, grace to be able to actually ascend to godhood, becoming a goddess, and because of being a goddess, she has rightful cause and effect to bring about order, life, all that, so she could be up here. This woman technically has mixed bag died before, so you could put her here. And her actual personality, there's a level maybe at one point being shame and regret because of the death of her firstborn. Godwin, technically it makes Pennight perceive, Godwin, Mesmer's, birth, but still, there's maybe one point where hope, fear, great deal of love, compassion, but then no compassion, which again I'm going to explain when we really get to something that's strong for compassion. But if I had to say Queen America's like genuine personality at a mortal or about to come in full-fledged of being goddess, or you want to say that this is full goddess and not just this, which is a mix like coming into the ascension, Queen America, I would say for this being goddess Queen America and everything about her, shame. Pre-ascension, probably say very much constitute being in a White Lantern Corps then. Now, isn't obvious other things I explained. One, standing for the ultimate order, construction, laying the foundation left between in the best, most, pressing matter, pretty much making the lands between binded by all different means of strings, fulfilling life, fulfilling order, being, overlooker, all powerful, mixed perception in a very, the best possible word that could best constitute this would be, even if it isn't all intention of loving, there's a level of very much oppressing, omnipresent, down in all factors of people's other claim of like power and standing, like case of protection and order, to pretty much ultimately make everything fit to the best means of the greater will and have no defiance against the great golden order. But then Queen America here has not only shame from the loss of a child, has shame with being pretty much a slave to the greater will and a bunch of other confines of conversation and talk, and she does everything now to be rid of the greater will and to reform, things in a better way, was why she shattered the Elden Ring, right? And from this shame, possible past doings, and fuck over her people, and a great deal of deep sorrow, and possibly this being a form of a woman that has so much deep-seated regrets and depression, now most likely being in the Shame Lantern Corps, who want to have a restart, a reignite of like a flame, but still being very much pulling from her deep sorrow. So that's very much a strong tier for her. Frenzy ending Maluma, I think, is where another kind of mixed unknown is. She wants to take, live now, the tarnish rate in question. Hold up, that's sense in my throat. Pause, no diddy. That's mixy on it. The full articulate. Frenzy ending Melina wants to take down Lord of Chaos Tarnish, aka Chaos Solidified, right? But she doesn't really evoke a greater sense of emotion, and the mix maybe like perception that she in hiding was the Glow My Queen, and Melina's own personality, and the mixed will to do it, and how she's going about it. I think she could be the mixed arguable first Will Lantern Corps person, but if you make her see that she died to become, the Glow My Queen, she could be up in the mixed take of like the Black Lantern thing. Maybe you can even like stretch shame because she letting the Tarnish, do this. She warned the Tarnish not to do this because not only the type of path that he would go on, but as well, obviously, that she would kill him. So maybe there could be some regrets. It's kind of all an unknown. But I think for now, I think Shame is decently fine right with her mother. So, yeah. The Tarnish, the man, the myth, the legend. Okay, the Tarnish, obviously, because he's the playable character, right? This is us, the audience. It's kind of all over the place with any emotion. You could very much invoke any emotion from will, compassion for the good or the bad. Pink Lantern Corps is kind of because there's no love interest, no greater standing out like love, right? That a Tarnish has, unless you stretch like his love for his friends and allies, I guess. Rage is not really very shown with the Tarnish, even though you can very much utilize and make your character be the biggest rageful behemoth Goliath stand, go berserk on niggas, Wolverine niggas, whatever you want to say. Can very much stand within the Fear Lantern Corp thing, even if, again, we already have him, as Lord of Chaos, but he can very much still greatly impact with fear because he's using Frenzied Flame. Orange Lantern Corp for greed is a very much more physiological and idealistic question. If everything you do is for the greed of power, standing on a higher crucium, you just take and you steal, you kill and rob, pillage, just to go ahead and not only seize opportunity of whatever. If you kill the demigods, it's to take clothes and weapons. There's hope, if you're striving on the same ideals of, Ronnie, to rebuild the lands between, get freedom back to, the Tarnished and everyone that lies within the case of this domain. There could be a great deal of shame because, I don't know, the past order, death is very much there because the Tarnished obviously dies back to back. And then there's even like White Lantern thing because posting still hope and shit, right? But yeah, that's the way it is. I didn't mean to go on, obviously, Clark on because from his mother does the most random twist of things, right? But I would like to say, just base the Tarnish, just looking at Tarnish as the most simplistic, face value, very much just existing protagonist, as technically mixed bag he is. He/she/it is very much mixed proclaim and mixed perception to say is just kind of a mixed bag, like, I don't know, like, you could very much just say by the baseness of, like, the fact that Tarnish willfully goes out and takes out any odds, forever has vigor, forever has grace, and forever has the not only unprecedented, unparalleled, impetuous hunt for the case of, any possible way to ascend and push beyond his limits to get to the Earth Tree, to become Elden Lord. He would take out any odd, he would vanquish any foe, mixed being ally, friend, and most importantly, just kill to ascend to Elden Lord. I think that very much constitutes, again, at base game standing, just to be willful, and in some way, by becoming Elden Lord, he would overlook and protect a vast land, a territory, being the lands between. So, yeah, the Tarnish would just be like that. So, I think it's very much constituting for, the Tarnish is at base stand to be this. Now, every other case of, Tarnish talk, I will give the credit of being an opposite version of the Tarnish, but not too dummy much. So when we talk about DLC Tarnish and just going off of what the DLC somewhat sense of story is, you could mix claim that the Tarnish is moving on the means of just baseline compassion, which is where I'll talk about more what the Compassion Lantern Corps is. In this case, right, the Tarnish is going in pursuit of not only a person that can grant the ideal of compassion, even if their means of compassion is riddled by a tyrannical, one of the puppet people. But everything that you can do in different circle of friendships, missions, side stories, and adventures do give the qualification and domain of pushing to do things out of the goodness of your heart, being selfless, humble, modest, trying to very much grant people the freedom of choice and provide them with whatever needs that they have. That is one of not the greatest personification of being compassionate and being a very much proudly solemn cat in different endeavors. You can help out everybody and grant them a true vision to some actual true worth of compassion and open their eyes to whatever their hearts desire. You not only instill hope, great vigor, and love in these people, but also have a great deal of loyalties and allyship, especially when you face the bullshit ass fucking boss that is pretty much getting gang tied bullet wounds, jump man by a bunch of people, and even though you can't possibly, negate the capability for a bunch of people to come up, still getting multiple times overrun while only having, yes, two very much goated individuals fighting with you is still one of the most annoying things. But if you want to argue that the Tarnished isn't as compassionate as you have the possible chance to be, right? There is the opposite end of compassion where a lot of people in the Purple Lantern Corps do not have compassion, and that's why they're in the Corp. The Compassion Lantern Corp is like a form of reform, therapy, prison, mental evaluation of a person, mentally, spiritually, and physically, are reformed to become a better person, because the Lantern Corp fully is designed with a ring to instill greater purpose in the person. People who aren't compassionate, people who are selfish, callous, terrible people. The Purple Lantern Corp, aka the Compassionate Lantern Corp, or the fucking different talk for like the type of color being like the Vigo or something else type of form of saying, are tied with a bunch of different deep matter of like the most terrible, vile pillagers of innocence, the worst of the worst people possibly in their past, but they have changed so drastically, like literally like a fucking snap, because the Lantern Corp gave them a whole new sight of mind and perspective. In the Lantern Corp, there are probably multiple times, dozens by different accounts, murderers, thieves, rapists, whatever you could think of, and they're all there because every one of those people I just said at face value, reasonably so, don't got compassion. They are dreadful individuals, but in this Lantern Corp can be changed because they don't have any compassion. That is why the Compassion Lantern Corp is probably in the top 5 to arguably greatest way to possibly actually reform the Joker, because then he could actually have compassion and be changed with a higher virtue of purpose. But again, that's just using that tarnish. Now, Bale, easily fear. I don't need to explain it. Put the fear of God in people is a not only tremendous, very much terrifying Black Force energy dragon. Darth Vader of Far Missoula, do not be played with. Sith dragon, simple as that, no questions. Mikola Amp Radon, aka Puppet Radon, you could say is on the same stance of compassion, but is a face value of what he is intended because he is dead. The dead Lantern Corp best makes sense, regardless of having Mikola align with him or not. That's just using, again, his core credit of concept that this man Radam, right, is literally a undead husk again, and whole technical mix, if you want to perceive brain, is being controlled and entirely diverted from whatever he wants, as Mikola has molested his mind, entirely binded him to his will. So yeah, like that's the type of like stance that he's on. Now Mikola would be compassionate, ironically, on both double sides, because in truth he does seek a sense of compassion, but a passion under the boot heel of other people, and then by different proxy, because he doesn't have true compassion, he's just a very power lustful, hijinks order person that is a tyrannical, compassionate overlord. So, both ends of the spectrum work, but as well being a god, you could just put them up in here. You could say that they both in proxy, because being ever sent to a god can be this. So I think there's very much argument that God of Mikola should be here, but he very much constitute the fact of Mikola being there, which is probably where we're gonna put him. Goddess of Rock Melania, I think easily for Melania would be a mixed reckon of fear, maybe rage, and even like shame, because of having to be forced into this ungodly, terrifying, type of thing where not only in this sense of form, it is not only from tetrifying, that's actually a formal word, as I'm pretty sure it actually is, right? But petrifying form, where she unleashes a godly curse that she never wanted to come out, and it comes out full circle to an extent that, again, nobody would wish on anybody in comparison. And she never wanted this curse. This is a curse given to her by her mother and father. She has been a host of the outer god for a very long time, and because it was sealed into her by force, it is just something that she never could want. And now, being in this point, you can say that she's more of that. I think shame and any other mixed impression of other things could possibly be where Melania is. Even I think Melania is actually kind of a mixed person to say. I think you could argue a lot more, but I think she's very much mixed to be in shame with her mother and sister, or be over here in yellow, but I'm going to put her in shame. Malekith, the Black Blade, the Hound of Queen Marika, destined death incarnate. Malekith, right, I would say could be a mix of all types of emotions. You could say love for his half-sister, his loyalty to Marika is unquenched, right? He has a great deal of rage. He's a very rageful, wrathful hound. Fear is an understatement. Shame is because he failed to go about keeping destined death, in place, and it was stolen, and it killed his tentacle nephew and Godwin. Death is because he literally harbors death, but he's never died. But I think the most fitting, and because I do fuck with Malekith, and I do think it's very much ironic to say, I think death is like undeniable, mainly because he uses death. And, he does bring death in every form, with its being, and is seen as that. But that's just Malekith. The Beast Clergyman, I think you do have a lot of argument to say just as much invokes all of that stuff. But I think love, or some form of love, maybe even will, it's kind of hard to say, but I think love is something that we can't deny. Love for his not only great fame, Shadow, in the idea of being, the servant, the eternal world guardian, protector, and even if time come where he would need to even slay Marika if she got out of line, is something there. But the fact that he had so much love for Marika, even after what she did in betraying him technically, and even if she probably had animosity towards him because his failure caused her firstborn's death, he still had love for this woman. So I think that's a great deal of love right there, undeniably. But let me just see if this is actually a word real quick. Tetrifying. If terrifying, tetrifying.
You're not trying to be whoever. And even the best is, now remember the one guy?
Tetrify is not a word. When I mean to mix tetrify, I don't mean just simply terrifying, even though that's very much true, because the goddess of Ra is undeniably a sick, wicked form of power that, nobody will want to be cursed with. But when I said tetrifying, I mean like in the mix of like Tetris in a technical slang sense, with no rhyme in this sense, to basically be like kind of very weird to take form. So, yeah, that's kind of like what I guess you could say, the technical slang is, right? But that's kind of what you can maybe like say for it, right? But there's also like detritus, if that's even the right word, because hold on, not to like interrupt the video with this whole talk of this, making sure, because detritus would exist. So it's not the same, but that is also maybe a better form of mixed word, right? Such as a game, a different mix, like definition of that kind of lines up with that, but that's besides the point, right? Casimir, right, is a very mixed person, to say the least. So for you going against mixed more, it's not 27 a.m. by the time I'm recording this, so it's Tuesday, so happy Tuesday, 9:30 to 25. But anyway, Mesmer, right, as a person, I think is a mix between being a mix of all other stuff as well, but mainly clearly very too strongly. Love for his mother, his eternal, not only love for the means of what she stands for, the golden order, his praise to his mother. He sees her as a goddess among all form of beings. He upholds to her in every case of the way. He has a form of not only, I would say, some argument, the same level of like standards as an enforcer, scorcher, people, scorch the earth type nigga for her. He got the same level of like love and admiration and great loyalty that maybe at one point Darth Maul had for this man Darth Sidious. And I think that Mesmer, he has so much deep down sense of like bondage and care for his mother that goes so much more deep than ever possibly to be quantified. Mesmer as well obviously has a great presence of fear with especially, the Shadow of the Earth tree as DLC for multiple players, but very much in the case of the Shadow of the Lands Between. Maybe you could say shame for his greater dark side and Impaler and all the snakes and shit, which is where we get to, the Absol Serpent down there. But I think love would have to go as well with his uncle, in this sense, Malekith, which is always crazy to think about. But you could, again, very much say that he goes to mix other spots, but I think love is a solid, tier for him to be in. Next is Godwyn the Golden. There's not much greater known in grand scope about Godwyn besides he's the perfect, not only child, demigod, was like the Balder of the Lands Between in the matter for, Will Smith. Golden's luscious hair, efficient warrior, tamed a dragon, was very profound. So I'm not gonna lie, he could be a mix of either being very much willful, compassion in a good way. You could say, White Lantern, because he was everything pretty much. Obviously he's died before, but that's for God when he's dead. This is when he's alive. But I think he'd just be another person to being willful. I mean, he lived to the golden order in the best ways possible, and was a very willful person to do anything he could to go not only in the footsteps of his mother, but as well to the case of his father, Godfrey, first Elden Lord, right? A.K.A. Hoalu. You know what I'm saying? And as an Empyrean, could as well ascend to godhood. So, yeah. But Biblical Serpent, I think, is where another form of shame comes into play. A lot of people would be shameful in the Lands Between. I think that's where it comes from. Again, you could also say this also invokes fear, even rage, but I think shame, like with the case of his half-sister, is very much accurate, right? Next is Radahn in his prime, young, red-famed Lion of Caelid, conqueror of the stars, king of the battlefields, lion, mightiest demigod of the shattering goat. I think it's a two-way stretch. He obviously is very prideful, does have a great hunger for power, is a conqueror, a dominator, a pillar of power, but I think undeniably no one can deny that he has a lot of love. Radahn has always showed that he has love for Leonard, his steed. He had love for his master, had all different mixed possible claim to having love for his mother, his siblings, was a very loveful person, and I think very much loved his home, and I think that's very much evident with Radahn in every aspect of his character. Yeah, he was a very conquering, prideful person, and I do think you could argue, even though I don't think he was totally devoid of compassion, if you think he was just a very power-hungry dude, even if, again, he had a great deal of love, the only other possible, Atlantic corpse he could go into that would be a lot more, strong, evident form, but also match like his iconic, purple electromagnetic power case of talk, or electrokinesis, right? And obviously, iconically famed gravity magic, force pull, type of shit, being, a crazy, versatile, sorcerer, and holding the idea of being the most crack fiend demigod imaginable in a lot of face value sense, as is the same guy that did capture and contain literal fucking alien celestial beings and ran across not only the stars, shattering them with his pure might and fully confining different from nebulas and pulls of shit to his will. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, you could argue, say, compassion for the good or the bad, and then there's will. He's very mighty. Well, I think love is very much evident for him, undeniably. Rennala in her prime. Now, she had a lot of love for Radagon when they were together. She's a very powerful sorceress. She ain't play no game. She's very stern. She has a lot of will. You may say hope, but I think love is very much evident. Not only love for Radagon, but everything she's done is always about love. Now, there's a version of her where shame is very much something to talk about, but I think that's clear. Now, Melania, Blade of Mikola, servant of the Unalloyed, very much undeniably the greatest demigod, and pit for pit, bang for bang, base wise, right, is a build different woman, right? The most unparalleled shorty in the idea of being a one-woman army, walking down people, stamping a foot firmly in the lands between as a not only living onslaught of whoop ass, a living hurricane of a blade, all that type of shit. Melania, I think you could very much strike as having a great deal of love, especially to her, little twin brother in the case of Mikola. Love mixed back to her mother. There's some similar to being the person that's drove off for compassion. You could say mixed fear because how she was feared. Shame because of rot, but we already have that with Goddess of Rot. I think love is just a bare minimum thing. And before, I go about explaining anymore, I'm obviously just putting them in mixed different row setting, but how these people are compared in a pair for pair, tier thing would be what I would constitute has more this than another. So this is the guy that I think would be the most feared out of all these people. This person can have the most love, more will, more shame, more rep of death, life, shit like that. You could argue all day who deservingly has more or whatever. It's just a case that was curious to y'all. That's simply the reason why. But Godfrey, now this is where it's going to be interesting. So not only does a man define Temperus incarnate when it comes down to how he is as a person, Godfrey is a mixed persona and a different side of his being in life. Godfrey is a relented, more composed, strong, idealistically profound hell, not only slayer, warrior, king, champion, beast, axe of Queen Medica, the lion, right? Lion of the lands between. I think for Godfrey, though, he is a mixed tangle of just using Godfrey and not talking about Horaloo. We're going to get to Horaloo, obviously. I think undeniably so for his warrior stand, again, not being the same untamed, built different vicious beast that we can see him be, where he really lets loose the lion and really goes whole saber tooth on niggas, right? WWE champion. Godfrey has a mixed take of being either willful, because he'll always do what needs to be done for the lands between, for Queen America, for his children. He has so much love. The love was unprecedented, unquantifiably boundless for this nigga. The dude loved his wife to an extent where he would do anything for her. He loved his children by all accord, Morgoth and Moog. He did love Godwyn. He most likely, by any mix of their children that he had, did love them too. And he did have a great deal of love, and that's the reason why he came back to the lands between. He does have a lot of rage, but it's very much contained. I would say that hope, you can make stretch, he's on hopium to come back to the lands between. He has died like other Tarnished, and he did come back to life, so he could be in death. He very much could be in death. But there's also maybe because of him fulfilling order, you could put him up here. But I think undeniably that it's going to be a tie between love and Green Lantern, but I think love is what's driving him a lot of the time. So I know that might be surprising for some people, but I do think if you really pay attention to lore, love is a key factor on why he's doing what he's doing. Now, Horaloo, undeniably so. Rage. Wrath Incarnate, that shouldn't even be argued. He's just a beast. He literally is a whole lion, a whole predator instinct, a killer. That's undeniable with him, right? But then you got Rolana, who, I'm not gonna lie, a little bit of her mixed like emotions. Obviously not full weird explaining lore I've taken in from her. I couldn't really get that much more from her. I more pay attention to the talk of mixed power scaling. But for what I know, she has love for Mesmer, which is kind of, you can make stretch be incest. But then there's a level of like, she's just a very not only studious warrior, so you could like, I don't know, put her up in this, but I think she probably would just be the bare minimum love, because not only like does she love what she do, she loves Mesmer. She does everything she can for mixed Mesmer. And Rolana, even if again mixed different hyper steps to be mixed back Mesmer's technical mixed auntie, right? She does love this man. So I guess that's like the bare minimum face value stamp of where she could go. I guess if you guys know more, you could kind of see where you think Rolana more goes. But yeah, Radagon though, I think easily, undoubtedly, because of the fact of how strong he stands for the case of the Golden Order, being the ultimate champion of it, and that his entire intentions has always been for what's best for the Golden Order and the same, its rule firmly. I think easily White Lantern or Will would have to be there, but I think easily the whole White Lantern thing is easy. Like, you never really loved not only Renala to a great deal, it's all for the basis of having a peace treaty and making some form of legacy. The kids kind of just came with it. He never really had a great form of love relationship from what we know with Queen America. Radagon is very iffy on personality and being, so there's nothing really a greater take from him in that sense besides being that. And it just would have to be Life Core or the Will Core. Like, there's no form of difference. Like, he has to be Green Lantern or White Lantern, Life or Will. Suppose that. Fire Giants. Ooh. You can very much just simply stamp him and being mixed rageful, but I think there's a great level of like the dude having a great deal of shame. Not only is cursed to be over here guarding the forge and a slave to basically Queen America's will, but as well is the last of his kind, has survivor's pride, guilt, and a great deal of not only feel of desecrated, most likely mixed spirit, a lot of mental torture and strain on his being that fully creates, a undeniably hateful, sickening dislike for not only the Golden Order, because they indirectly, came down, stormed mountaintops of the Giants, and rid all of his people of the senses, but has to live with the unfortunately unyielding torture of being cursed to stay in one area for eternity and protect a forge that could be his only way to freedom that he can't use and most importantly can't do anything for. And he died trying to protect it. And what did he get? Relief, but nothing more. So I think shame or down emotions is undeniable there. So, yeah. That being said, right? Pre-Serpent Rat card, I think can be the first guy we can mix Constitute and Greed. I know some people think like Godric would be here, and he very much would, but it depends on what you constitute this as. He's so greedy for power is the thing. He was basically, I would constitute a lot of people very much inclusively akin to the Gaius Julius Caesar of the lands between, always seeking new means of power, always being thought about the new advances, and always wanted to really fully clap his foot firmly onto anybody and rise to the highest monument in power. It seemed like a god in Volcano Manor. The dude has always been seeking that. That is an argument for Yellow. No compassion, even though he wasn't like a brutal, warlord advising, deaths and countless different toll of like, I don't know, pressing the most, like, I guess, hardcore, like, pushing for power dude, because I mainly say this by his own personal knack for always trying to run around and claim different seeds of power. but it's mainly because again he is so like obsessed and again so hardcore on the idea to gauge power like never seen before, to use it to match somebody that's done nothing to him, to take possibly destined death, to always be slithering like a snake, to devour and seek and sickle his way into like power, to go deep, deep, deep into all different roots of crazed, hellish course of order, to fully gravitate and untangle these different routes of power like never seen before, and stands as the biggest solidification of a man that will go to lengths like never seen before and will never relent to course about getting what he wants. You can say it also could define will, but not will because he does it because of selfless means, he got integrity to anything. It's all off a personal grasp and grovel for this path. And I feel like right card as a serpent would be just arguable to be in that sense. A living kaiju personification of lust, blasphemy, gluttony, all horrid array for that. So yeah, he would be greedy. He would be very much a standpoint of that. I mean, if he could find a very much wild form of power source like the Orange Lantern Corp's ring and or its actual fuel, like its arcana, its symbol, he would all want it for himself. He would literally let himself be absorbed to the fullest to become the personification of greed, to extend a whole new level of power. Raikar was always power hungry. He was always mixed bag about himself and would go to the most wild extents, of craziness to get what he wants. And he literally is titled with the blasphemy sin. He will go to extent like never seen before to deny all possible corners of possible, relent, humbleness, selflessness, anything of that to string about new level of power. He simply put will never have enough. He is a black hole of an individual. But yeah, post rock, you can basically put this nigga in Death Lantern Corps. He's basically dead, but just by the idea that he's a walking, devouring, hulking, lifeless individual, and mix fear from him and rage, you could count him as being a person that could just fit into these archetypes. But I think a more interesting one would be another person in compassion, and it's mainly because he doesn't have compassion, because he's lost of his mind and is now again a living, breathing monstrosity of a person. He has stage 69 brain cancer, and the Compassion Lantern Corps could maybe change him. But you could say these other ones is just I want to be unique with it. And I also want to put another person of his reasonable standing and Black Lantern Corps. But again, you could basically count him as being dead at that point. But still, Ignoster being this big monster home brute like thing, you could just say another form of fear if you want to know. But still, I would say by all claim fear, because motherfucker literally was a fearful creature that would downfall and needed to be contained because possible threat to like the lands between on an earthly regard. Ronnie, already talked greatly about her and why and how she's where she is, so explanatory. Hope Morgoth has a lot of different plethora of emotions to take from. Will, because not only as the most graceless possible Elden Lord did he always stand for the order that shunned him, an order that did not love him. He fought for a kingdom that would not have him. He fought for a mother that did not love him. He wanted to live to the honor of a father that he barely saw. But Godfrey left an impression. He left a ideal, he left for honor in him that he would never let up. There's a great deal of shame because he is a matter of lesser seen species. He's seen as a disgusting omen, a demon, a abomination, every accounting of being a disfigured, underappreciated form of being, something he could not control. He's a cursed case of being, has no grasp of anything more than his unfortunate saying of doing what he does because of not only birthright, but maybe possibly getting the presence of maybe some possible opening for maybe one day actually upholding the order that his father fought for tooth and nail. Again, he is forsaken. The dude is tarnished, literally and figuratively, of anything, and is cursed to pretty much be a shunned, discouraged individual. So I think shame is very much that, and his pride and Lenten Corp that would fit more with him before will. Again, he has a lot of will, and I would like him to be there because Morgoth's the literal goat, and deserves something. But I think shame is undeniably there a lot more. Now Moog, with his actual personality and not like the molester, he's kind of mixed because he's not really too much greater shown, and even with greater lore readings, all I really know is that unlike Morgoth, he wasn't going to fight for a place that didn't want him. He was going to make his own empire. He was going to make his own thing. So I wouldn't say he's greedy like Rykar, but very much powerful, Vato that would go to any extremes. Mixed bag and like teaching and learning, like blood magic. He'll go through all the plethora, the most crazy bravado, different shit. That he'll do some very much, like hard a sorcery, grinding the paint shit, so you can mix qualify with will. I put him mainly up here because you could also put him in shame because you just have shame of being an omen, but he seemed not to care for mainly the molester side. So I think, yeah, we could put him in will too. I think will is where he would go. But besides that, I can't really think of another thing because there's nothing about him that's more. Again, if we say the molester side, then yeah, put him in like love or something. But his own personality, like everything that we could take from actually Moog, the Lord of Blood, I think will is there. Gaius. I mean, it's just like eternal loyalty to Mesmer. I can't really take anything more from his personality from anything I know, so I'm going to put him in Will 2. Romania, I think it's a mix of like having great will and love for why she does what she does. I don't know if there's anything greater grand scope more from that. She uses rot within the basically rot fields, so I don't know. I'm gonna put her in love just for sure. Divine Warrior Beast, don't know much great emotion about that. Goes for his bird form. The Godskin Noble and Apostle. I'm fucking nuts. This is where we kind of get weird, where it's just these random one-off people. I would say for them, that for the countless case of like people that they killed, they wouldn't be in death but be in fear. Is that probably best, fit them in what they want, right? Margit, literally just a clone, but has a very eternal stand form of duty, right? AKA, in this sense, will most likely in every occasion, first clone or second clone, stand against, the tarnished or whoever is trying to seek the Elden throne, right? Off the basis of protecting it from somebody that would not only not be the best to wield it, but of protecting, I guess, his stance of like his, kingdom, like territory and ownership. And so Margit just has eternal devotion to that. So yeah, I guess these mixed even dragons, I don't know, it doesn't matter if personality and greater stuff. For Sax, though, I do know has a great deal of love to Godwin as this was his dragon, as last sex, grand sex, not anything of that sort. For the Sax is the dragon, if I'm not mistaken. So I probably would put him in great deal of love because he stayed with Godwin even if he was blighted by death room and all that. So I would probably put him pretty fucking high in like love and devotion, right? Then Egon, I can't really take anything more from him besides just rage, reasonable hatred, and indignation against Baal. So yeah, Alexander, I think very much soundly should be Will. Right? Not only does he have a heart of gold, but got a not only built different might, valor, and vigor to him. And I think in every capacity very much strikes that without a doubt. So yeah, I think that's a solid thing. I think we very much fit in a Will Lantern Corps. It could be interesting to see him actually interact with Will Lantern, characters, and it would be very much fitting, to say the least. Now, live. I think love is undeniable. His love for Ronnie, never quenching, even in the case of, his Bedford Shadow. You can argue, it's still the same thing. And even with the version of him where he's over here being berserk, I would say that, the love is still there. But you could also, qualify being, rage, because obviously he's berserk. But, I still think there's a great deal of love because he had a lot of inner conflict in the perception of Ronnie. So, yeah. Frenzy Flame, though, obviously fucking full-fledged Fury Incarnate, literally the parallax of the lands between. Godric, greedy motherfucker, undeniable. Greedy like a bitch, greedy like shit. Not even to be argued. Grafting literally personifies gluttony and stealing and pillaging different form of people just to go and make yourself stronger. Greedy. Greedy. That's undeniable. Timber shit don't know. Bernal. Kind of makes to say that there's a level of self-anguish and going down a very, I guess you could say, very disgraceful path and traitorous and doing a big sin, but being put in compassion to have greater compassion and reform could be a great thing. You could also put him in shame, but I think compassion is very much reasonable. Sir Osbanok, I think you could very much put in a strong mix between hope and will, because every form of decision he does is for the hope and better of things. So I think I'll put him in hope. I think hope would very much fit him, man. Well, Lita, besides this internal sort of mixed bag to this man Mikola for being, mentally molested, and then same time as well having a mixed argument and being coined for being a person that just is like a random whatever fling forward. Compassion could be very much where she's at. You could stretch love, but I think we'll just put her in bare minimum compassion for the good or the bad. Freya is a mix between compassion, love, and will to do whatever she can and mix honor. She had great love and aspiration for Radahn. There's even headcanon where maybe she was a lot more than just a matter of fame, trusted soldier, or maybe there was something romantic between them. Again, not canon. And then there's compassion, that possible molested thing, but I think will is very soundly where she should be. D. I don't really know. I think he's just such a kind of vague, unknown, mysterious person with not that much great personality really shown, even with you doing all of Beast Clergyman's thing, even upon Dane or his death, and then really take from him. I think that his whole thing would probably be I don't know, maybe a mix between, you could say he very much starts from being a compassionate person but showing love, and mixed creative vice, because when I say this I don't mean that he's really doing a great big thing, by giving us advice and trying to help us in different aspects to the same level of a heavy, great compassionate person, or seeking routes for compassion, or being a person that can be deterred of their uncompassionate shit and reform to a very, proud, solemn, very much, courteous means of that. But I mainly say in the sentiment that he has a bare minimum of just good sense showcasing of humanity that comes in credit of compassion, comes with, sympathy, empathy, any place of, that shit. I feel would best solidify him as that. Again, any class of, that would very much, I feel be strong sentiment for being compassionate, because everything else is kind of just stretching what he could be, because besides compassion, I think you just put him in will, but again, that's just looking at face value, it's tarnished. Again, don't have much more to say. More, I don't know more from, so I'm probably going to put this nigga in compassion for the good or the bad, right? Sir Gideon has an absolute mix of being greed, uncompassionate, so he could be changed, Or, besides greed, right, you could very much constitute a mix, kind of like mixed dubious, kind of like structuring a mix the philosophy of the man to be mixed shame as being so jealous, envious, and bitter at the tarnishing other people for doing things that he could not, and always evoking pain, slimy deceit, and manipulation. But I think greed is very sound where he should be. Envious motherfucker like never seen before. Greedy like a motherfucker. Snake! I'm gonna stop you. Then we got Horn Scent, which, why not just being, member of fucking Mixers counts, probably be the same thing again. Good or the bad, compassion or not, it doesn't really matter. Leaf Dane, same thing. Don't even know what that is. Dung Eater, more clear different form, is a rotten, angry, terrible person. So Red Lantern Corp could very much be where they could be at in this sense. Moongrum and Rogier could be a double-sided sword of just being bare minimum willful or journeyous. This man Rogier seems to be a decently solid, to have here and there, whatever, you talk to him. He seems to be just a very, cordial, cool, diplomatic, compassionate person. So I'd say bare minimum, you should be here. We're, leader in the total compassionate. Again, sorry for the y'all mix, but the full-fledged articulate Renala, right, would be easily, undeniably shame. She has, everlasting love for this man. Rather gone up there, but obviously because of the fact that she, in this sense, is over here, being so depressed, downtrodden, in a draconic state for him, I think she has way more shame, uncomparably manly all around because of that. But again, there's a mixed argument about her shame not being the same involvement. I'm saying, who has more big showing of shame? And I'd say she has just as much, but these shames, they're very much apparent. Her shame is more like just down emotions because she's more sad than anything else, so maybe not be the same form of shame. She still has a lot of love, so you could put her in the same spot, but I think shame, again, is a lot more, maybe strong. We're not going to be going over these people entirely, right? Because not only a lot of these people have weird things to take from them in personality in some occasions, but obviously I will be trying to put some of these people into play. That's just a more downside thing. Don't worry about that. And with Source first, because I'll have a lot more to say. Solvis, I think, is very much a greedy person. Slime, ready to go and do whatever to fuck over Ronnie and use her as a tool. He's a traitor. He's scum. Big shit. No other claim. Dilla, say very much love is very much indefinite with his character. He has a great deal of not only love, cherished thoughts, and even with his mixed hubris, down the dump depression, a showcase that he's want to do everything and whatever it takes to do everything to not only love this a literal opposite version of Mikola, but then in different account course down whatever route he needs to deliver upon the love of the people that he cares about. So yeah, simple as that. Dung Eater Tarnished, though, with the mixed talk of, Dung Eater thing, so everybody's omen, nobody's omen, curse thing, I would say would be a mix of being the one that you could define in yellow, right? Or, if you wanted maybe, another uncompassionate, he's trying to give compassion, well, basically not having any, but again, we already have, Tarnish up in there, so I think it'd be easy to put him in easy, yellow fear. Again, I know that's what another person is, but as well, rage, so, you could just kind of go whatever you want with him. It really wouldn't change too much in the same sense. It's just simply that. So, yeah. But then you have the Wolf of Radagon, I guess, will for a matter of serving his owner in this sense. Then you have greater personality or anything shown. It's just blatant bare minimum. I guess always gonna have love and servitude to the house that, was brought up in this case, is just blatantly just face value a basic animal. So yeah, the Gluamite Queen personality is not full graded on display, but is a mixed tick of being a mix of either fearful, because she will destine death at one point, and as well had every argument because she was not only a fearful being that willed Black Flame, was the leader of the Godsking killers, as well has no greater form of showcasing compassion, was willing to do anything to ascend to a case of godhood and defy Queen Medica with her stance. I would say that Yellow Lantern fear, right, is very much appropriate for her. So yeah, Star Scourge Beast. I don't fucking know. I mean, again, it's just a celestial fearful creature, so probably just put on that same level. Blackguard. I mean, there's not anything greater grand stuff shown about him in personality to take. He seems like he can be a very kind person when you really get to just more generously know him, put on the case. So I'll give him this decent sense of compassion, not anything too much. Again, that's really all I could baseline say about him. Then obviously this guys with the case of his board. I'm not gonna be obviously talking about his fucking board. Dancing Lion. I mean, for joking sense, he deserved to be put in Yellow Lantern Corps. This beast fucking scares the hell out of me because of the type of shit I'm gonna do to my controller while facing it. But joke aside though, like, I mean, for Dancing Lion with the person inside or just the being, I wouldn't be surprised if you could very much levy on like the fear perspective. Then the board very much could say the same thing for, right? Nefeli, I think, is a mixed tangle of love, compassion, and will. But I think Nanabu So will is a big thing for her. She has a lot of heart. I'm gonna say the case of the GOAT himself. This man, Soldier of Godric for last, but we're almost done with all this stuff. So looking at everybody in comparison there, like say Trina, about being the same means. Mikola, all the same means, for good or bad. Then Retta, I don't know much more about her, but you could probably put her in the will as well. Servitude to Melania, in the greater case of the house, right? Them, what makes it these are people, because these are just like guards and servants, like no other. Station left, I don't know if I've heard of them, right? You could just say they have like bare minimum servitude and shit. Not much more to really say. Finlay has a great deal of loyalty and love to Melania, so you could put her in like multiple forms of that. So I would say that she's easily there. Plus, she carried her all the way from Kaled all the way back to the Hallock tree. So there you go. Millicent, I think just like her mother, however Melania had a kid, would very much be in shame. Then, this being said, recording be fucked up. Too fast. Selling. I know. Don't got any greater sinful emotions really be took him, so I was teaching you about astrology and different sorceries. He's a very knowledgeable person, and she's very optimistic about things, and has a great love for our art, so I don't know, maybe love, maybe even say hope. I think that's fine. Then say, man, there's a fucking clone to this, man. So it is. Dallas, from everything that I've taken in, I would say could be another person will, but you could also have another argument for being like a very fearful mixed person. So I mean, I don't really know much more, but yeah, I just think this is one of the occasions where I just generally don't know. I don't know much more. Very don't know much more. Shabriri, couldn't really take much more. Yura is obviously like a fearful person, most of the will, frenzied flame, fearful like a motherfucker. That's not even like a surprise. Darno, Melina, Godwin. Godwin obviously should be in death. And literally died. more dignified than anyone else. Melina, though, I think would be unironically, even though not being a love interest, would be one of those characters that would quantify a great sense of love to the point where she's able to do not only a sacrifice, go out of her way to, out of love or out of security, kill the Tarnished, and has always been multiple times strive and hard, loyal to this man. So I don't know, probably put her on like second hand to Blood. And yeah, guys, that's in my entire case, Lancing Corp tier list for Elden Ring's Pantheon / people. That's probably what I'm going to base, greater tier list around. Tell me if you guys agree. Tell me what thoughts you guys have. Hope you guys have enjoyed. It's been a long one, a very interesting one to say the least, though. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Peace out, mommy. Love y'all.